All right, here's how you do question number one of lesson 2.04a that we're going to be talking about order of operation. And order of operation is necessary because since we had different mathematical operation, and when I say mathematical operation, I mean add, subtract, multiply, divide, exponents, square roots. Those are actions you do to the numbers. And because we had different operations, we have more than one, we need to have a rule that tell us what is the correct sequence of working those operations so everybody has the same answer. And the order of operation is right here on the right hand side of my screen. You can see it. You see it says order of operation, and you do all of these in order from left to right and from top to bottom. Okay, so that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you in these problems. So look at problem number one. I changed the numbers, but it's very similar. Okay, and the first thing is when I see order of operation, I see like a checklist. So first thing you need to check, do I have any parentheses, bracket, braces, or absolute value, which are these bars? Okay, no. So I go to the next one. Do I have any exponents or roots? Yes, I do. Okay, how do I work them? From left to right. And when I start looking at my problem, the first thing I notice is I have here a root, square root. Using your calculator, you can put there here square root of 49, and you can see I got 7, so this is 7. And I also have an exponent, which is right here. And 7 to the second power, again, you can use the calculator. 7 to the second power, it gives you 49. Now, anything else that you have not used yet, you're going to write it again, like I'm doing right now, see? Everything in black I have not used. Everything that I did in blue is when I did the order of operation. Right now I did exponents and roots. The next thing I'm going to do is any multiplication or division. Do you have any of these two? Yes. How do you do it? You're going to do it from left to right. Okay, so I'm going to change color here. And when I look the expression, we call this math problem an expression, which is a math problem without an equal sign. I can see I have a multiplication here, 7 times 7. Okay, you can do it in the calculator, but that's going to give you 49. Okay, and then everything else you have not used, you're going to write it again. Okay, let me keep the 49 in blue. And I'm going to keep the 5 and the subtraction, see? Now, since I'm not finished with multiplication or division, that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, what I'm going to do next now is I'm going to work with the division. So because I'm still in this here, multiplication and division, do it in the calculator. 49 divided by 49, that is 1. Everything else you have not used, write it again. I have not used the 5 and the subtraction. And then I'm going to do the last one, addition or subtraction. I only have a subtraction. So how much is this? This is going to give you 4. And this is how you do this first problem, okay? Following order of operation. Here is question number 2, okay? And again, I'm going to do a similar one, okay? The process that you're going to do to simplify or evaluate. The word evaluate means work it out. Or simplify means work it out and make the answer as simple as possible. So the way you do this is what we call a numerical expression, a math problem without an equal sign that contain numbers and mathematical symbols. And the way I'm going to simplify this is follow this checklist or this set of rules, this sequence of operations. Okay, so but I like to see it like a checklist. So I'm going to simplify, evaluate, work out this expression following this checklist. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check if I have any parentheses, bracket, braces, or absolute value. See, you see the symbols there. I don't see any of those here. So I'm going to go to the next one. Do I have any exponents or roots? And yes. So when you do this from left to right, okay, you can see that you have an exponent first. So using the calculator, you can use the calculator if you want, okay, which I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna do 2 to the power of 2. You can see I got 4. So this here is 4. Then as I keep moving to the right, I have a square root. So again, in my calculator, I'm gonna do the square root of 121. And you can see I got 11. And then everything else that you have not used, write it again. I didn't use the a, the subtraction, the times, the 6, and the plus. I haven't used those yet. Okay, now we're gonna go to the next item in the checklist, the next operation. So, do you have any multiplication or division? Yes, I do. What are you multiplying? Oh, when you look from left to right, you're multiplying the 4 by the 6. And 4 times 6 is 24. Again, use the calculator. You don't remember your times table. Anything else you haven't used, write it again. I have not used the 8, the subtraction, the addition, and the 11. I have not used those yet. Okay. And now we go to the next item in the checklist, the next operation, addition or subtraction. Now, how do you do this? You're gonna do it from left to right. Remember what I put in red on the top of this little table. You always do any of these order of operation from left to right because that's the way you read. So the first thing when you look at this third line from left to right is I see a subtraction. So I'm going to do this first. 8 minus 24. So do it in the calculator. 8 minus 24. You can see I got negative 16. And then everything else that you have not used, write it again. Okay. So I haven't used yet the plus and the 11. Okay. And finally, I'm going to do the addition because that's the only operation left to do. And again, use the calculator if you don't know how to do this mentally. Negative 16 plus 11. And you can see that our final answer is negative 5. And that's how you do problem number 2. All right, here's question number 3. Again, I'm doing similar problems. I'm changing the numbers so you can do this on your own. We are using the order of operation, this checklist on how you're gonna simplify or evaluate numerical expressions. And we need this checklist, this order of operation checklist or rules, so everybody has the same answer. So I like to see it like a checklist because I go one by one, top to bottom. And when I'm looking at the problem, I always do it from left to right. So first thing I'm going to check, parentheses, bracket, braces, or absolute value. Do I have any of these symbols? Yes, I do. It's right in here. See? Going to put it in blue. It's right this parentheses here. Right in here. But when you go inside, okay, I hope you notice you have exponents and subtraction. Okay. So what do you do first? If you look at the checklist, the exponents are before the subtraction in this table. So that means we're going to do this first. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a little, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to do first, let me clear all of this. I'm going to do 12 square, and you can see I got 144, but I'm going to write it really little here, 144. And then what I'm going to do after I do that is I'm going to subtract 4.2. Okay, and when I do that, which that's what I'm going to do in my calculator, so I'm going to call my last answer, press the A and S key, and subtract 4.2. And you can see I got 139.8. So that whole parentheses is 139.8. But to get there, I also had to follow order of operations inside the parenthesis. I had to do the exponent first before the subtraction. Again, that's because of the table. See, exponent is higher in the table than subtraction. So that means you have to do it first. Now remember, everything else that you haven't used, write it again. I haven't used the times, 95.04 minus 1. Okay, and then I'm done with the parentheses. The next thing is, do I have any exponents in this second line of work? No. Then the next thing I'm going to do is, do I have any multiplication or division? Yes, I do. If you look, we are multiplying 139.8 times 95.04. So use the calculator. Now, if you look at my calculator, I already have 139.8 in the previous line. So if I click the ANS key, it will call it back, recall it. And then you can multiply by 95.04. And you can see I got this long decimal. So we have 13,286.592. Okay, do not do any rounding unless the instruction says so, okay? I have not used yet the -1, so I'm gonna put it back in. There it is, okay? And finally, what we're gonna do next is to do the subtraction, because that's the last thing we have left to do. So we're gonna do this subtraction here. And again, I'm gonna use my calculator. Now you can see that big number in green, still my calculator. I'm gonna press the blue key. And since that was my previous answer, I can press the ANS key and it's gonna recall it. And then I can subtract 1. And you can see that my final answer is 13,285.592. Okay, and I'm just gonna verify if they ask me to round. No, doesn't say anything about rounding. That will be your final answer, okay? All right, here's question number 4, okay? Again, I'm doing a similar one, but all of these problems are evaluated or worked out, simplified, following the order of operation. This checklist, this table you see here is like a checklist, a sequence of how you should work out the problems, okay? So first thing I need to check, do I have any parentheses, brackets, braces, absolute value bars? See, those vertical bars are called absolute value. Yes, I do. Okay, I can see I have these bars right here. So let's start with that. That's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna work with these bars here. See these bars right there. But when you look inside the bars, you have like a fraction. And in the fraction on the top, you have a subtraction. So you're gonna have to do that first. Okay, I'm gonna write a little. 23 minus 14. Again, if you don't remember how to do this or you cannot do it in your head mentally, just use the calculator like I did. This is 9. Okay. Then, since I have a fraction, 9/4 inside the bars, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make that fraction into a decimal. So 9 divided by 4. Look what you see. I got 2.25. So inside the bars, I had 2.25. However, I need to keep those bars. Okay? The only thing I did is I work inside. Let me change the color here. I work inside the whole thing, 9/4. See, that's what I did in my calculator. And I got 2.25, but I had to keep those bars. Now, we haven't seen this year about the bars. These bars are called absolute value. That's the name. But I'm not going to explain what does it mean right now. But the good thing is you have those bars in the calculator. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the blue button. And then you're going to click here where it said, oh no, it's right here. Look, you see the bars and the little A inside. Click on that. And inside the bars, you're going to type the number 2.25. Okay. And you can see right away that you got 2.25 as your answer. So the final answer of this whole absolute value, the bars, is going to be 2.25. Everything else you have not used, write it again. So you can see I'm writing everything in black again because I haven't worked with those yet. Okay, so I'm just writing it out because I'm following the checklist. And right now, the only thing I did was the bars. Whatever was inside the bars, I got a number, 2.25. And then I did the absolute value, 2.25. You can see I put it in the calculator. Okay. Forgot to close the bars. And with your keyboard, you can see the vertical bar too. Okay. And I got 2.25. Now I'm going to do the next thing in the list. Exponents or roots. Do you have any of those? Yes, I have a root right here. See, it's right there. But look what happened inside the roots. See, I have a to the second power minus 20. So I cannot do square root until I'm done working inside. So I'm going to have to do 8 squared first. That's what I'm going to do here. A to the power of 2. You can see I get 64. And then I'm going to take the 64. So let me write this little. So I'm going to take the 64. So this is 64. And now I'm going to subtract 20 because that's what it says there. So 64 subtract 20. And you can see I got 44. So everything inside the square root is going to be square root of 44. 64 minus 20 is 44, but I still have the square root. And then I'm going to do now the square root of that. So here's the square root. And since 44 was the last answer I got, and that's what I'm going to do square root, I'm going to press the A and S key. And you can see I got this long decimal. Now, for the moment, you're going to keep that decimal exactly like you read it there in the calculator. I know it's tedious. 6.633249581. Okay, I'm going to keep that number exactly as I got in the calculator. Everything else that you have not used, write it again. So I'm missing this. And I'm missing this, the blue 2.25. See, I'm following the checklist. Okay, I'm following the checklist. Then the next thing I do is multiplication and division, but I don't have any of those. And the last thing you're going to do is do addition and subtraction. Okay, now I don't have subtraction, I have all addition. That means I'm going to work all of this out because they're all the same operation, addition. Okay, so the cool thing is I can type all of this in the calculator. So I'm going to type 5 over 16. See, that's this one. Move the cursor to the right next to the fraction bar plus that long decimal. I don't want to type it in here. I just see that I have it in my previous answer. So press A and S plus 2.25. And look at my answer. My answer is that long decimal. Now, you're not going to type that long decimal because the instruction says to round to the nearest hundredth. So the 100th place is this 9 that I highlighted in my calculator. So look to the right. Okay, you have a 5. So the 9 need to go up. But to help you, those students who get confused when what happens when you have a 9, you go 1 up, you get a 10. You cannot write 10. So see this like 9.19. And since the number to the right of the 9 is 5, go 1 up to the 19. Oh, that will give you 9.20. And that will be your final answer. Okay, that's how you do the rounding here. Let's go to the next one. All right, here's problem number 5. And again, we're using order of operations to simplify this numerical expression, to evaluate, to work it out. We're going to follow the checklist. So let's check this numerical expression. Let's check if we have any of these, parentheses, bracket, braces, or absolute value. And in fact, I have 2 of them. Now remember, you're doing it from left to right. So I'm going to do first the absolute value bars here. See this one here? I'm going to do that first. Okay. And I need to work inside the absolute value. Now, inside the absolute value, I have only a subtraction. So let's take our calculator. And we're going to do that subtraction in the calculator. 28.8 subtract 23.4. And you can see I got 5.4. So the answer is inside the what I highlighted in green, inside the absolute value bars is 5.4. And then remember, now you have to do the absolute value of 5.4 because that 5.4 is in between the bars. So here's the bars, type 5.4, finish closing the bars, and your keyboard, you're gonna see the bar to close it. And you can see at the end, I got 5.4, okay? Now, I'm gonna go and as I keep moving to the right, I see I have a parentheses too. And in the parentheses, I have things to work, okay? I had to do all of this in here, but I highlighted in yellow. So there I have multiplication and I have addition. What do I do first? I need to do the multiplication, okay? Because if you look at the table here, the multiplication is higher than addition, okay? That's why you need to do it first. So using your calculator, if you don't know how to do it mentally, I'm gonna multiply 7 times -2. And you can see I got -14. So right now, this here, I did these two, I got -14. And now I need to take the -14, I need to add the -2. So in a new line, I'm gonna take my last answer, the -14, and I'm gonna add -2. And you can see I got -16. So everything in here, inside the parentheses, everything I highlighted in yellow is -16. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write now this parentheses, gonna keep the parentheses with the exponent 2 on the outside, but inside I have -16 because that's what I got when I work it inside. I kept the parentheses because I have an exponent on the outside of the parenthesis. That's what I kept it. Now everything else I haven't used, I'm gonna write it again, okay? And now that I'm done with the bracket, not the brackets, the absolute value bars and working inside the parentheses, according to what it says here, now I'm gonna go to the next item in the list, exponents or roots. Do you have any of those? Yes, I do. That's what I kept the parentheses, okay? So I have this here to do, see, right there. So I'm gonna go to my calculator. Now, when you type this in the calculator, you need to include, especially when you're working with negative numbers, you need to include the parentheses because it's the parentheses that you're squaring. And you can see that I got 256, okay? Everything else that I haven't used, I'm gonna write it again. So let me put this back in red, 5.4. And I haven't used the division, and I haven't used the 113.4. So I did the exponent. The next thing I'm gonna do is multiplication or division. So I'm gonna have to change colors here because I like to use colors to demonstrate this. Okay, do you have any multiplication or division? Yes, I do. You can see it from left to right. We had this division. So taking your calculator, that's what I'm gonna do. You're gonna take 113.4. You're gonna divide it. You can see the calculator doesn't show you the division symbol like the line with the two dots. It shows it like a fraction. Get used to that because in algebra, divisions are written like fraction. And you can see I got 21. Okay, and then everything else that I haven't used, I'm gonna write it again. I don't know why I took away the green that I needed again. So 256 here. And finally, the last thing I had to do is the addition or subtraction. I only have an addition. So let's put that in the calculator here. So 21 was my last answer. So ANS 21 plus 256. And you can see what is my final answer, 277. Okay, I'm showing you how you follow this checklist of order of operation. All right, here's the last question, question number 6. Again, I'm doing similar ones. We are evaluating numerical expressions, math problems without an equal sign, using numbers and mathematical symbols. And the way we are evaluating, simplifying, working them out is using order of operation. So we're gonna follow this checklist. Do I have any parentheses, brackets, braces, or absolute value? Yes, I do. You can see here is the parentheses. Now careful, because inside this parenthesis, in fact, I'm going to do this a little bit smaller. So let me do it like this, because here's the parenthesis. What I'm going to do is work inside here. See everything that I highlighted in yellow? I need to do that first. If you notice, I have square roots, subtraction, multiplication. What do I do first? Look at the table. And you can see the roots, the square root is higher in the table than multiplication and subtraction. So I'm going to do the roots first. So I'm going to do this first. So what is my square root of 36? My square root of 36, let's get the calculator. Okay, your calculator is going to become your best friend here in this class. So square root of 36, and you can see I got 6. Okay, and then after I do that, the next thing I need to do is 2 times 9. See, I need to do these two. 2 times 9.2, I'm sorry. 2 times 9.2. Why that? Because multiplication comes before subtraction. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 2 times 9.2. You can see that I got 18.4. Okay. Now the answers that I got, see, I'm still working inside the parenthesis. I'm not done working with the parenthesis. Then the answers that I got, I'm going to have to subtract them. So when I subtract 6 minus 18.4, that's what I'm going to do in the calculator. 6 subtract, and my 18.4 was my last answer. So I'm going to press the A and S key. I got negative. Now all of this parentheses is negative 12.4. See? And I don't need to put the parentheses because I'm done working inside the parentheses. Okay? Everything else you haven't used, write it again. I didn't use the plus, 3 to the third power. I didn't use this subtraction in black. This minus in green, it was the answer, subtracting 6 minus 18.4. The subtraction in black, and the negative 5.15 in black. Okay? Everything in black I'm keeping because I haven't used it. All right? Now the next thing I'm going to do, see, I did the parenthesis. The next thing I'm going to do is exponents or roots. Do I have one? Yes, you do. Look, it's right here. This one here. Okay? So let's put it in the calculator. 3. Now, how do you put exponent 3? You're going to press 3. You're going to press the key AB to the third power, see? And you can see you got 27. Everything else you haven't used, write it again. So the addition in black, the negative 12.4 in green, the subtraction in black, and the negative 5.15 in black. Okay. Now that we're done with exponent, and the next thing is multiplication or division. I don't have any. And then finally is addition or subtraction. Do you have? Yes. So now I have a subtraction in black and an addition in black. So what do you do first? You're going to do the first one that comes from left to right. So you're going to work these two right here, see? What I put in with the red brace. So in the calculator, you're going to type negative 5.15. I'm going to subtract negative 12.4. See, I just wrote exactly what I read here. And you can see I got 7.25. And then everything else you haven't used, so like the addition in black and the 27 in purple, I haven't used those yet. I write it again. And finally, you're going to do the last addition, so all of this, okay? So I'm going to do 7.25. Since that was my last answer, I'm going to click the A and S key. I'm going to add 27. And you can see what I got there, okay? If you follow this table, this order of operation, this checklist, okay, you're not going to have any issues, all right? Just follow it to the T.